Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Fran and this is knitting podcast number 2. Today I wanted to talk about 2 finished objects that I have. One new work in progress and an old work in progress, and then do a little small description of my trip to Rhinebeck this past week. That was my first time going and I really enjoyed it and just wanted to share a little bit of that. So here we go. Starting with what I'm wearing today, my first finished object is my Esther sweater by Petite Knit. I cast this on September 7th and finished it on October 13th. So I worked on this for about 37 days. In my first video, I showed it to where I just had the body done, and I really quickly worked on the sleeves, and it was in a rush to try to get this done by the New York Sheep and Wool Festival so that I could wear it. Since I've already talked about this project, I don't want to talk about it in a ton of detail. Overall, I think it's an awesome pattern. I worked on the sleeves and they turned out just a little bit longer than I wanted. Right now I have them rolled up. Whenever the sleeves aren't rolled up, I do think it's too long. So I've contemplated going back and frogging and fixing the sleeves by just maybe an inch or two. But I really enjoy the way that they look with the rolled cuff. So I think I'm gonna leave it as is. I do still have some yarn for this project, so I can always go back and fix it if it really does bother me. But so far I've worn it like 3 or 4 times already and I really enjoy wearing it. This is what it looks like with the sleeves not rolled. Just a little bit too long for what I usually like, but with the rolled sleeves I really enjoy how it feels. The drape of it is really nice. It feels really nice and soft, and it's definitely warm. The only other modification that I did with this sweater is that I changed the neck. So the neck called for a folded neck, so making it longer and then attaching it at the bottom so that it's folded over. I know that I don't enjoy the feeling of those kinds of necks, so I just did, I think, 10 or 12 rows and then cast off using a tubular bind off. I like how it sits a little bit more. It doesn't feel tight or anything like that. Overall, I really enjoyed this project and I'm really happy with the finished object. My second finished object is something I hadn't started yet before the last video. This is a scrappy sock I made using Summer Lee's Just Add Mohair sock pattern. I have the sock project book by Summer Lee. It is very useful. She has basic patterns on how to do different kinds of socks. So she has a basic pattern for a heel flap and gusset, for an afterthought heel, for a fleagle heel, which I haven't done yet and I want to do soon, one for a German short row heel, and then also in the rest of the book she has a lot of different patterns. So the one that I pulled from is called the Just Add Mohair socks. I have this bag of scraps that I've been keeping. It's just like random fingering weight yarns. Most of them are knitting for Olive, but yeah, so just random fingering weight yarns and then mohairs that I have left over from other projects. So I took all of those and made 2 scrappy socks. I started these on October 5th and finished them on October 23rd, so I had them about 18 days that I was working on them on and off, but they were actually a really quick project. Like the first sock I think I had done in maybe a day and a half. I'm really happy with these. I'm not sure that these are the colors that I would have chosen if I were buying colors or buying yarn for this project, but I love it because I got to use the scraps that I have. The only thing that I did end up buying for this is I got 3.25 millimeter needles that are 9-inch circumference, so for sock knitting, and I've really enjoyed using those. It was a really nice scrappy project to just have and stockinette to just work on something simple every now and then, so that was really nice. I would recommend this pattern, and man, the product is just, it's so fuzzy and it feels so comfy, and I'm very excited to have these to wear around the house. My first and newest work in progress is my Nordic Bloom cardigan by Caitlin Hunter. This is what I have so far. So I've been working on the color work for about 2 weeks now, and yesterday I just got to the point where it starts to divide for the armholes and then work on the separate sections of the cardigan. It's worked on 4mm needles, and I'm using the recommended needle size. The ribbing is worked flat back and forth, and then you combine and add stitches for the steeking section. So I've never done a project that uses steeking, so I thought this would be a good time to try it. I think I might make a small gauge swatch and try out whatever method I'm going to end up using first, and then actually do the cutting of the project. It makes me very nervous. I am using a superwash wool, so I think because of this, I was reading online, since superwash wool is less sticky and it doesn't felt as easily because it's treated not to felt that easily, that with superwash yarns you have to reinforce a little bit on the sides. So I think I'll probably end up using both methods of using a crochet hook to secure first, and then using a sewing machine to reinforce the steeking before actually committing to cutting my project. I've really enjoyed this project so far. Up close, the color work looks a tiny bit wonkier, but I know it's going to block out. But looking at it now on the screen, I'm really excited about how the pattern is showing up and how it's looking so far. So now that I've started the split, I'll keep going on this front left section, and then the stitches for the back and the front right section are on hold, and then you pick up and work each panel, and then there are some German short rows up at the top to help with the shoulder shaping. So I'm really excited to get to that point of the project, but really happy with the progress I've made so far. My next work in progress that I showed on my last video is my Sophie shawl. Right now I don't have any needles on it because it's what I'm using for the Nordic Bloom cardigan, but I've been going back and forth with the needles for both projects. So this is what I have so far. It just looks slightly bigger than last time. I have decided that I'm gonna do a size large, so I have, I think, like 1 or 2 more inches of increases before it's at its widest, and then I'm gonna start with the decreases. So this is less of a project update and more of a book update. If that's not something you're interested in, feel free to skip ahead to the next part of the video. I was originally reading Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano while I was working on this. I got to about 50% of the book, and then my loan ended on the Libby app. So the book got automatically returned, and sometimes I put my Kindle on airplane mode so that I can continue reading a little bit longer, but I didn't do it quick enough and I lost the book, so I only got about 50% of the way into the book. I got another loan to get that book again, but it's going to be another 3 weeks before I get the book again. So I do want to finish it. It was something I was interested in, but I need to wait. In the meantime, I started a book called The Other Misses by Mary Kubica, and I had read another book by her called Local Woman Missing. They're very easy, fun, fast, mystery reads, thriller reads. The Other Misses was really fun. I did not expect it to go where it was going. I would absolutely recommend it if mystery, thriller, suspense novels are kind of something that interests you. Once I got done with that one, I started one more. I started How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. It is about a man who appears to be 30 but ages 15 times slower than normal people. So he is 400 something years old. I really like how it goes through different periods and different eras. It's a little bit more sci-fi than I anticipated, but I'm still enjoying it. I'm only about 40% of the way through the book, but that is what I'm reading while I am continuing my Sophie shawl. So moving on to talking about Rhinebeck. This was my first year going to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. I went with my mom and we met up. She flew in from somewhere else. I flew in from Chicago, and we met up to spend the weekend together, which was really, really exciting. Saturday is when we actually went to the festival. We had stayed somewhere about an hour and a half away from the festival itself. So we got up that morning and made the drive out to Rhinebeck. The drive was absolutely beautiful. The trip itself was gorgeous. I love seeing all of the fall colors. Seeing this area of New York was absolutely gorgeous with all of the hills, and it just looked beautiful. So it was a really, really fun trip overall, excluding even the yarn stuff. The festival itself, we got there around 11:30, and the festival closed at 5, so we were kind of on our feet running around trying to get to as much as we could. We saw some sheep shearing demonstrations. We saw a sheep herding demonstration. We walked around, looked at vendors. I wore my new sweater, which was what I was excited to wear. It was a little bit warmer than I anticipated, so there were a few times where I just popped it off and then popped it back on. I loved seeing the Rhinebeck sweater, the Ooey Gooey by Andrea Mowry. There were so many people wearing it, and it was so fun to see the different versions that everybody came up with of like some were neutral, some very like neon and really cool. In terms of things that I bought, I did not buy too much, I think, but I did want to show the few things that I did buy. So the first thing is these buttons by Holland Hoof Farms. Yeah, Holland Hoof Farm Store. So I got these. In this light, it's a little bit hard to tell, but they're like ceramic and they're a little bit speckled, and they have this green flower. Yeah, ceramic and a little bit speckled, have this green flower, and I was thinking that I would probably use this for maybe like a green cardigan or something like that. I didn't have a project in mind, but I just thought they were so nice I wanted to buy them. I had to stop myself from buying a lot of buttons. They had like some that had that quilty star decoration on them. They had ones in the shape of different animals, different vegetables, like super cool. And now that I have the info, I absolutely would order some online. I'm glad I got them. Glad I also didn't go crazy and buy a million different buttons. But very, very cool to look at. My other Rhinebeck purchase is from Roaring Acres Alpacas and Boutiques. So actually the yarn I bought, they gave me in this little tote bag, which I thought was really, really cool. I love having tote bags, and I can use it as a little project bag. This was one of the first things I saw when we got to the festival, and I was so in love with this color. It's like a brown marled, let's see. It's like this marled brown, and it's like a chocolatey brown with a very, very light brown. It's a worsted weight yarn. I was very excited about this one. I even thought about buying a sweater's quantity of it and making like a simple v-neck. I still really want to make a simple v-neck and something like this, but it was just too expensive to justify. So I ended up getting this one, and then I got from the same store, I got this one, which also has 50% Surrey. It's a very soft yarn, and it's this beautiful like cream color. So I was thinking I would make some sort of mittens with this. There are some simple mittens on Petite Knit's website, but I also kind of wanted to branch out and look at different designers. So if you have an idea of a worsted weight mitten pattern that might work well with these two colors, feel free to leave it in the comments. These were the two actual yarn I ended up buying, and I'm super happy with them. They're so soft, and I'm very excited to use them. Overall, I really loved the experience at Rhinebeck. I will say it is very crowded, and as somebody who is generally an indoor cat and struggles with the crowded, it was a little bit of a push for me, but I did still enjoy it. So there were a few times where we would go into one of these big barns to look at vendors, and I would get a little bit overwhelmed and just need a second to walk out and get some air and then come back in. There were a lot of people at the festival. I also saw that there were other events around the festival. Like I saw that a Woolen Affair was an event that happens on Friday. before the actual New York Sheep and Wool Festival. I do think that would be something I'm interested in. I did see the vendors that were there, and that would be something that interests me. And I'm not sure what the crowds look like for a woolen affair, but I do think that might be something I want to try to do next year. We ended up leaving on Saturday as they closed, and frantically running around to see kind of the last of what we wanted to see. But we also knew that we weren't trying to spend a whole lot more. My mom ended up buying some needle felting stuff, so she's been really interested in like the landscapes of needle felting, and she got this beautiful kit. I can't remember where it was from, but she got this beautiful kit to make a landscape with like little sheep, and it's got like a sunset in the background. And then she also bought a kit of like autumnal colored wool to use for the needle felting as well. So on Sunday, we were staying somewhere around Walden. We decided to head our way back towards the city. So we stopped by a few small towns on the way. So the first one was Beacon, and that was really cool, like seeing the hills. And I'm definitely interested in next time maybe putting aside a little bit of time to do a hike around there or something. We walked around, stopped in a few little shops, got a coffee, and that was really nice. And then we stopped in one more small town, which was Cold Springs, New York. It was also just a quaint little area with a bunch of little shops. One of the shops that was there was called the Endless Skein, so there was actually a yarn shop. Since I had already bought yarn the day before and I didn't have any projects really in mind, I was just going to just kind of touch some yarns and see the store. I did end up buying a tape measure just as a souvenir, so I got my little souvenir from the Endless Skein. Overall, I really enjoyed our experience at Rhinebeck. I would go again and again, dedicate one day to the festival and another day to the surrounding area. Maybe see if I can squeeze like a hike in or something like that. The weather was really nice, and I really enjoyed getting to see everybody in their handmade sweaters. It was just really fun to be around so many people who really enjoy this craft and are interested in the same kind of thing. Thank you so much for joining me. After I posted my first video, I really thought I was going to be speaking out into the void, but the fact that I did have people comment and give me opinions on patterns and things like that, it was really encouraging, and I really, really appreciate people taking the time to comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye!